Sister Jayanti, thank you very much for coming to the Rio Convention's television studio on a sweltering day in Rio. You're here representing the Brahma Kumaris Foundation. Perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about what the foundation does and where you work.
Brahma Kumaris is known as a spiritual university, and so we take up the spiritual dimension of life, and we see how spirituality is able to impact absolutely every single facet of life and civilization. And so we have centers all over the world, and I'm based at the center in London. And we're here because since the 80s, I personally have been interested in issues of the environment. And I think at the current time in India, we're the single largest organizational user of renewable energies. And we're currently working on a project which is able to store electricity from solar energy. And apparently that's something quite new. It's technical, but we have another person who can tell you more about that. But also we have one of the largest solar cooking ranges in the world in India, and that cooks 60,000 meals a day.
And tell us a bit about the role of spirituality, because we've seen a lot of people here talking about technologies, talking about economics, talking about financing. Some may think that having a spiritual element to this might be a bit odd, but tell us why you think that this matters and why you think it works.
I believe that it's actually a spiritual crisis that has brought about the environmental crisis. I don't think our actions would have been the way they are if we had a spiritual awareness and consciousness. And so the message we are bringing to Rio is that we have to raise our consciousness and bring it back to an awareness which is holistic, which is pure, not just based on money and self-interest, but which is one of love and compassion and concern for our whole human family, but also compassion and peace for the earth and all the inhabitants, all the living creatures. When you have a spiritual consciousness, then this determines the quality of your actions. Then your actions are not going to be ones of exploitation or violence and aggression, but rather you're going to be able to treat human beings and all other forms of life and nature itself with respect and dignity. So we think that the root cause of the crisis is actually a spiritual one. We've forgotten our spiritual identity, and when we come back to that, we can bring about a change in our actions and the state of the world.
I mean, that's quite a powerful statement, but I suppose it's also to an extent an easy statement to make. How can you get people to appreciate the world they live in? How can you get them to take on a more spiritual aspects of their life, particularly in the time when many of the world's religions are losing followers rapidly?
I think people are seeing that the state of the world is the way it is, in total disorder and chaos, because of a lack of values. And values are something that are not something out there, but values belong to the spirit and within my own inner world. If I can connect with myself, I can find truth and peace and love. And when people realize that these are the things that they want, that these are the things that are missing in their life, and so as a result of this, there's gross materialism and consumerism and exploitation. So the subject of values opens the door to let a person understand that if you want to change the quality of life, you have to change your own value system. And if you want to be able to have values in your life, then you have to connect with the spiritual identity of the person.
And obviously part of Brahma Kumaris' remit is to try and change, I guess, people's mindset. But you're also, as you mentioned earlier, doing a lot of interesting work on the ground with renewable energy. Tell us a bit, two aspects I'm quite interested in. One is on this solar cooker in India, and also tell us a bit about yogic farming.
One of the things about solar cooking is that we have our ranges in Mount Abu, and at the bottom of the mountain in Abu, And India, especially Rajasthan, where we are located, has plentiful supply of energy from the sun. And in fact, it's part of a whole awareness that we should be taking less and be able to give more. And if we're taking the energy in terms of the non-renewable energies, then there's no way we can replenish that. But what we can do is change to renewable energies, and that will definitely move us further on our own spiritual journey. The other thing that we're doing is yogic farming and agriculture. And the model started in India, but it's now being translated into a place like Italy also, and probably other places. But how that works is, you know how vibrations impact each other. If I don't like you, you can feel it. And if I like you, again, you can feel that. So vibrations are real. Understanding that, what the farmers are doing is that they're taking the seeds and they're giving those seeds the power of positive thoughts through a higher state of consciousness, through meditation. And then right from that process of having the seed in your hand through to plantation and then care so that the seeds come to germination, and then further they're able to bear harvest. The whole process is through the power of meditation, individually but also families and communities, both separately from the field but also at the field itself. And what they found is that there's no expense involved, but also the soil is healthier because we're not using chemicals or pesticides or anything. And so the biodiversity of life within that particular area is very rich. And it also has been shown, we've had 3 years of research at a university in Gujarat, and then there's another year to go. But what they found already is that the crops that come from this particular method of yogic agriculture, the tomatoes, for example, have a higher vitamin C content. The wheat has a higher protein content. And so these are measurables that nobody can deny. And in India, there's a huge, huge crisis with agriculture and farming, with people even committing suicide because they've been given seeds that are infertile. And so they're expected to go buy seeds yet again and again. And that's not a very sustainable way to go.